Everything okay?
Yeah, I'm all good. This is the third time we've been running for shelter since this morning. So every time we have to wait till we get all clear from the home front command. So I've spent quite a few hours in bomb shelters this morning.
So for Israelis, you woke up to this, you were aware of it obviously from the early hours. What have you been told so far, and what do you understand in regard to what's happening there?
So it's a very extensive military operation. I think that we know that already, but already from the morning hours, we could see that Israel had struck not just Tehran, but several other places across Iran. The United States, of course, took part of it, so it's a joint attack. And according to my sources, we should expect this to be a prolonged campaign. And it really depends on the Iranian response. How far are the Iranians willing to go? Are they going to go all out? Which I think at this point, it looks like they will. Then this is going to be a very long campaign. Both the United States and Israel are targeting both military facilities, but also, of course, government buildings. We hear in Israel, in Israeli media, that Israel has taken out the commander-in-chief of the Iranian army, and they also took out the head of their military intelligence. Now, we haven't gotten that confirmed yet, and we also heard reports.
So we're hearing, sorry, just go back a second, the head of military intelligence may have been taken out. And who was the other person you mentioned there, Jan?
And that was the head of the army.
Okay.
So those two, apparently, those are some of the high-ranking figures.
So these are clearly very targeted strikes then?
Yeah, very much. Look, if you want to topple the regime, you need to go not just against their nuclear sites and their ballistic missile programs, you need to go against the IRGC, you need to target all of their infrastructure, and of course you need to start taking out their leadership. This is what Israel did with Hamas and Hezbollah, and it's essentially the same recipe that we're seeing here with Iran.
And what happens next, do you think? Because we're seeing this all over the Middle East. There are so many different targets, American targets, and we know at least one person is dead in the UAE as well.
Yeah, I think what's happening right now is extremely dangerous, mainly because Iran is dragging in other countries into this conflict. Now, will the UAE and Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries that Iran are targeting now, or they're targeting the American bases there, will they get involved? If so, I would say it looks very, very gloomy for the Iranian regime. Just the fact that they're facing both the Americans and the Israelis at the same time. If you add all of the Gulf states to that equation, it just makes it all the more difficult for Iran to defend themselves. So I think we're looking at a very, very intensive campaign, and at least days, if not weeks. I think we're going to have to, at least here in Israel, we're going to have to be running back and forth to shelter. And for the Iranians, of course, they're going to have to also seek whatever shelter they can, because some of them live close to military sites and they will be targeted.
Are you surprised at the timing of this and the swiftness, the speed of Iran's response? Clearly, both sides were ready to go here, despite the negotiations that have been going on for some time.
I'm surprised about both. I'm surprised about the timing of the Israeli-American attack, because we've heard for weeks now that it was about to happen. But then, we knew that Marco Rubio was supposed to come to Israel on Monday. I don't think he will at this point. But when they announced that from the American side, I thought, okay, well, it's probably going to wait until after he's left Israel, and the negotiations were technically still ongoing. So I thought that the strike was going to happen next week on Thursday, because that's when Donald Trump's own self-imposed deadline was about to expire. In terms of the Iranian response, I was also surprised how fast they retaliated. We were told in the morning hours that it would probably going to take maybe 12 hours before they gathered all their ballistic missiles and started firing. But they had their finger on the trigger, which is something that they have admitted to having for months. So they were ready. And this is why we saw in the past couple of hours 35 ballistic missiles fired from Iran at Israel.
In regard to what happens next, in regard to where this goes, there are lots of international players who haven't been involved. UN hasn't been involved. UK hasn't been involved. Here in the UK, we're obviously having a reaction, but it really is the US and Israel together. What do you think happens now in terms of global and regional players, Yoram?
I believe that some of the Western allies are going to stand on the sideline. Maybe they're going to try and help shoot down some of the ballistic missiles, but I think that's as far as it goes. You know, many of these Western nations don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want, even though they know that this is obviously better for the region, to potentially have the Iranian regime removed. Nobody's complaining, at least not behind closed doors, but they don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to go in and be seen as quote unquote breaking international law. They let the United States and Israel do the dirty work for them. But I'm sure that they're applauding them behind closed doors. What we saw from the Iranian regime in January and February, for that matter, the massacres on that scale is just incomprehensible. And it's incomprehensible that there's basically been no international coalition whipped up to try and stop this. So again,
there's a clear humanitarian cause here, as well as the nuclear points. Yoram, hopefully we'll speak a bit later on in the program, but for the minute, thank you. That's Yoram Confino there, our Middle East correspondent.